Welcome back to the Gains for Girls podcast. As always, very excited you're here. You can check out all things Gains for Girls at OutKick.com. We always appreciate you liking and sharing these episodes far and wide. It really helps. It helps change minds, which is incredibly important. The work that we are doing, it's not over yet. The war on woke has not been won. So all that being said, very excited for today's guest. But before we get into that, I want to tell you about today's sponsor. That's Good Ranchers. Check out the episode last week if you haven't yet. We had CEO of Good Ranchers on, Ben Spell. We talked about Good Ranchers and the mission, a little bit about his personal life, really incredible things. But I want to tell you why you should choose Good Ranchers. First of all, the quality of the meat. No antibiotics, no hormones, no seed oils. It is incredible, super easy too. It comes pre-portioned to your house, vacuum sealed. Saves time, reduce waste. Meal prep is a breeze, which is very important for me personally with all the travel and different things that I've going on. So check them out at goodranchers.com. Use my code Riley, R-I-L-E-Y. You get $25 off free express shipping and your choice of free, I think, ground beef, chicken, or salmon in every single order for an entire meal. So again, goodranchers.com, and go watch last week's episode with CEO Ben Spell. But for this week's episode, we've got some exciting things going on in the state of Georgia. Georgia has quite the political landscape. We, of course, know how President Trump, he won in 2016, he lost Georgia in 2020, and he won it again in 2024. So lots of exciting things going on there. Even this week, there is a bill being heard, the Riley Gaines Act, which you can imagine what this bill does. It keeps men out of women's sports, but it is just the biggest honor to have a piece of legislation named after me. But I understand and I recognize there are really, it being named after me is, there are far more people who fought much longer, much harder than I have. But nonetheless, this is just a huge honor, bringing this to the forefront in the state of Georgia and, of course, across the nation. Which this executive order that was signed by President Trump, I'm so encouraged to see the state of Georgia, what they're doing, how they're continuing to take action, because again, that executive order doesn't absolve states from taking the necessary measures to protect women and girls. We are going to talk to today the Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, discussing this bill, discussing the state of Georgia and his future plans in the state. So check it out here, the interview with Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. Well, Lieutenant Governor, I am so grateful that you're on the Gains for Girls podcast. It feels very timely talking to you now. We were just discussing off camera, and I've, of course, personally been following the state of Georgia, what you've got going on there. There are two fantastic bills moving forward through the Georgia legislature that would both of them would codify President Trump's executive orders to define sex-based words and keep women's sports female. One of them is SB 92. Sponsored by Senator Dolezal, and the Riley Gaines Act, which is just the biggest honor ever, sponsored by Speaker Burns. So again, both fantastic bills. I wanted to ask you though, why in the world, this comes to a shock to a lot of people that Georgia hasn't done this yet. This hasn't been a measure that's been done. So why in the world do you think it's taken this long for Georgia to bring these bills forward?
Well, great to be with you, Riley. It was good seeing you a couple weeks ago at the executive order at the White House, and just appreciate everything you're doing for women's sports. It's a great question. This is something that we were moved to do 2 years ago in the Georgia Senate, and obviously I'm the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Georgia, and my role is to preside over be the president of the Senate chambers, and we got it done. And for whatever reason, we were at the House vote, never could get the numbers there. But I think you helped inspire it, Riley, more than anything else. You came and testified there in the state of Georgia, and really put a face with the story behind what went on at Georgia Tech during the NCAA national championship swimming meets, and and all the other things that's going on at the national level. I think the election of President Trump has given some of these weaker Republicans a little more confidence about wading into some of these cultural wars. But it should not have taken so long. But we're glad that what is moving forward. As you well know, Senator Greg Dolezal has done a lot of hard work on this issue. And we've been very passionate about it. So our version passed out of the Senate last week, and there will be a version coming out of the Senate. There'll be a version coming out of the House. But at the end of the day, it's going to get done, and we'll have you down and make sure that you get the needed credit, and we appreciate all your effort and what you've done for women's sports.
That's very kind. It's definitely been a collective effort, really spearheaded by leadership like you have shown, Speaker Burt and Senator Dolezal, all fantastic people who really on a personal level I love, and from a professional level that I really just admire. Georgia is a unique state as it pertains to this bill and these protections that ultimately will ensure women of opportunities, because it's almost like they've been protected under, but not necessarily codified through law. So
that's right.
What do you expect to happen with these bills, and how can we, as Georgians who listen to this and watch this, but I mean, really more broadly as the general public, how can we ensure they get to Governor Kemp's desk to sign?
I think the momentum is there, and I think it's going to happen. And you're right. Georgia is a unique place, but it's kind of it gives you a good feel for what the rest of the country is talking about here in Georgia. If you would have told me when I first got elected to the state senate a few years ago that we'd had to be waiting in culture wars here in Georgia and really have to put some effort behind getting measures done, there's just our common sense measures that should have never really got into the mainstream limelight. But it's indicative of what has gone on nationally, where things like this, where there's it's boys and girls sports or whatever else, have been shoved down the American public's throat to make you and to force you into having to act on a measure like this and putting it in statute, because look, the last thing we want to do, I think you're probably like me, and 90% of the other people here in the country, you really what people do day to day, it doesn't concern you nor it bothers you. But when you start having it shoved down your throat and you look to be the one who is at fault for not believing in such measures like that, it makes it necessary, and that's what we moved to do, and all the help that you've given us so far has been great. It's going to get done. It's going to get on the governor's desk and get signed, and we just greatly appreciate. I'd like to tell you let's come and lobby and all this other kind of stuff, but I think all the hard work's been done, and it's just a matter of having the respective floor debates and then voting them out. So
we'll certainly be watching and cheering you on, and definitely keeping the pressure there. You mentioned the unique political landscape of Georgia. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think of even the few past elections that we've had. If I'm not wrong, President Trump, he won Georgia in 2016, lost in 2020, won again in 2024. You have two Democratic U.S. senators, Republican majorities in the legislature, and of course a Republican governor. I mean, what is the political environment in Georgia that has led to such big swings in election outcomes?
Sure. I mean, look, Georgia's always been very independent, minded state. I will tell you that. And we are, a very historically, a very conservative state. But a lot of people, 2020, there was a lot of attention that was put on 2020 because of what happened with the presidential race and those U.S. Senate races. Now, I will tell you, there was a lot of questionable things that went on during the 2020 race. And we don't have to rehash those, but there were a lot of questionable things that went on during that race, not just here in Georgia, but in other places. And I'm not afraid to talk about that. But Georgia, I think, it's illustrated that it is a red-leaning state just based on the 22 cycle and this 24 cycle. in 22 is when I was running for lieutenant governor. Every one of our constitutional offices were retained by Republicans. We had a very close Senate race between Herschel Walker and Warnock, and Herschel almost got him there in the end, but he was unable to. But I think in 26, you're going to see a very popular administration. I think you're going to see an opportunity for us to take that U.S. Senate seat back. And then also in the governor's race, I think we will retain the governor's seat as well. But it doesn't change the fact that, yeah, Georgia can have a little independent streak about it.
That's it. Yeah, you mentioned Senator Warnock, Reverend Warnock, which I speak for myself when I say that I believe Reverend to be a bit of a stretch. They will both have to vote soon, I imagine, on a fairness and women's sports bill
Sure.
in the U.S. Senate. Both of these senators, both Georgia senators, they failed the Stand With Women scorecard by voting against even allowing a vote to be taken on this same bill last year. So, I mean, what do you expect of their votes? Of course, this is an issue that you've seen at the local, state, and federal level. Definitely not among the general public, but again, at least in terms of elected representation, it's been pretty partisan. Do you expect their votes to fall in line with that of Democratic Party values?
That's a great question. Quite frankly, I think you might have a split vote. Tell you the truth, I could see definitely Ossoff. With him coming up in 26 and him trying to really thread the needle on being the middle of the road moderate Democrat, which he's not, but he is at least playing that role right now. I can see him voting for it, and I can see Warnock voting against it. This ought not even be a question, quite frankly. I mean, like I said, this goes back to just a common sense issue that the Democrats seem to. We actually had two Democrats that broke with their leadership and voted with us on your bill last week in the Senate. And so there are a few people who are breaking away on the Democratic side from this issue, but there's a lot of them, particularly in Democratic leaderships, is doubling down on this issue. Look, if they want to double down on it, I welcome that, because it weakens the individuals, and it weakens the party as well. And these issues, several other ones who are big issues in the eyes of the American public. Like I said, if they want to keep doubling down on these type of culture wars, then it might be a long time before they get back into a position of power.
That's the truth. The only people that it has proven to be effective for their tactics of doubling down are, I would say, conservatives, or really, again, common sense everyday Americans. And you mentioned these issues that really shouldn't be issues. I was so disheartened to see Senator Warnock's vote on the Laken Riley Act, of course, from his state where this tragedy occurred. So really horrific things. Last question for you. Governor Kemp, he's serving his last term as Georgia's 83rd governor. So I wanted to ask you, what does the gubernatorial in 2026 in the state of Georgia look like? Can we potentially see a Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones run for governor?
Oh yeah, the possibility is definitely there. I've just been telling everybody that I was going to get through this legislative session, because obviously there's going to be a lot. If I make that jump, there's going to be so many guys, 5 or 6, 7, 8 guys, could be many, who knows, that will try to run for the lieutenant governor's spot, and there'll be more people who will get into that governor's race. But yeah, if I'll make a final decision in the coming months, but I am going to get finished with legislative session in April. Take the wife and kids on a little spring break and chit chat about it a little bit, because it is a big decision. But I'm one of those. I love the state of Georgia, and I love what's going on right now in the state of Georgia, and I position myself in a leadership role. And I think if given the opportunity, fit that next role pretty well as well. And so we'll look at it. And hey, look, when I get ready to announce Riley, I just need you to come down here, because you got a bigger fan base than what I do here in the state. So I just need you down here to help kick off the campaign for us when and if we get ready to pull that trigger.
Hey, I'll speak totally selfishly when I say I would love to see a Burt Jones run for governor.
Thank you.
So just very grateful for you. We'll continue to amplify and cheer you on. Of course, we're going to be following both bills, SB 92, and of course the Riley Gaines Act,
Mhm.
as they hopefully get on Governor Kemp's desk to sign into law. So thank you for everything. We're just very grateful for you.
Sure, absolutely. Well, we're going to get them done. We want to have you down to, help celebrate, women's athletics and us defending women athletics. I've just wondered where all the feminists has been. I can remember the Title IX fights, and they had been very quiet on this one, and that's
You and
kind of
me both.
disheartening.
You
Yeah.
and me both. When I find out, I'll let you know.
All right. Sounds good. Good to be with you, and good seeing you, and best of luck in the near future.
You rock. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning into the Gains for Girls podcast. I'll be testifying on the Riley Gaines Act tomorrow, so we'll be sure to put some clips out online and on social so you guys can amplify and continue to put the pressure on these people. You heard a little bit from LG Jones about what the state of Georgia is, but we need to keep putting the pressure on these people, especially those weak Republicans who need some pressure to do the right thing. Sad that that's what it requires, but unfortunately, that is the state that we live in. As always, appreciate you guys being here. OutKick.com. Check out all things Gains for Girls. Like and share these episodes. And again, encourage you to check out Good Ranchers. Watch last week's episode to learn a little bit more about Good Ranchers and why you should invest. And yes, I say invest because that's what you're doing. You are investing in your health. And as we have learned, especially over the last presidential campaign cycle, there's not a lot of things that are more worthy to invest in than your health. So again, appreciate you guys, and we will see you again next week on the Gains for Girls podcast. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. The fight to save women's sports and restore common sense is far from over, and I continue the conversation every week. So make sure to catch more content over here and subscribe to OutKick so you don't miss a thing.